Right, we've got two more topics left. The first one we're going to look at is this whole talk about the MVP race. Justin Jefferson came out basically talking to ESPN at the weekend saying, as far as he's concerned with the form that he has so far this season, he should be considered for it. Mark, I'll add you another name, Bosa.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, if you want me to talk about it, like I'm definitely one of those people that I don't care that the quarterback wins it each year because they are so important. Like when we talk about games, it's always yeah, especially in Bose is an interesting one because you saw what Christian McCaffrey is doing on their offense. Like they've bona fide studs all over the place. So yeah, he's been absolutely savage. But like Aaron Donald has been like people are calling Aaron Donald perhaps the greatest player of all time in the NFL.
Mm.
That like that's been the talk this season, and he can't win an MVP. You know, like he's been so dominant as what 3 in a row now, defensive player of the year, and he can't win an MVP. So I don't mind at all that the quarterback seems to always win it because at the end of the day, they are the most important player. My stance has changed on that in the last few years, but when you see what Jalen Hurts, how he's transformed the Eagles this year, and then we'd be, we're saying how can we start neglecting Patrick Mahomes in the conversation? I know he was always the number 2 or number 1 favorite to win it, but when it comes to Justin Jefferson, I suppose RG3 had a tweet out, and I'm after losing now my stupidity. I closed the tab, but basically saying like he's putting up numbers now that should see him win the MVP. But like last year, we had Cooper Cup get the triple crown of receiving touchdowns and catches. Right? Wasn't that the other one to make up the triple crown? And he doesn't go and win it. I can see
I
you want to
guess
say
this year though,
something.
you got the top five, haven't you? So they're going to announce the top five names. I think I think he's got a serious case for the MVP award this season. I
So my
genuinely do.
my other thing is like at the beginning of the season he wasn't scoring touchdowns. There was a 6 game stretch that he had one touchdown. It was a rushing touchdown in there. I think what was it, week 3 or something. So it's like like it's not like he's blowing us away with his touchdown numbers. If I pull it up real fast in front of us, I think like he has the 8 touchdowns, but that doesn't top the league or anything. Like the the Vikings are confined to him. Like don't get me wrong, it's a great offense, he's absolutely the best player on his team. And we were in London, we couldn't wait to see him out there. Obviously, Dalvin Cook now obviously opens up with the run game what they can do. But when you start talking about he's going to set a new NFL record, it's like I really think now since we went away from the 16 to 17 game slate that we should be talking in terms of yards per game because then he doesn't have the record. Is the extra game has definitely helped him out in terms of if he does own the NFL record for most receiving yards of all time, it's not on a per game basis, which I do think that that's worth something. And at the end of the day, what it's an extra 10 yards per game over the number 2 behind him in the NFL right now. So no, don't get me wrong, he's a serious player. Like, but if Tyreek Hill is playing for anyone not alongside Jalen Hurts, he probably has more yards than Justin Jefferson, and he would have the more touchdowns as well. So like I just think it's too obvious to give it to a defensive player or to the MVP or to a quarterback.
Michaela, I'm a big believer in sharing the love, and I feel that they should share the love with this award. What's your thoughts?
I think it's if you were to think about it now, I think there's the three awards. Obviously, the big three would be Defensive Player of the Year, which is obviously only for defensive players, Offensive Players of the Year, and they should just rename MVP to the Quarterback Award because I do understand why it's kind of like there is guys who can show that they're more important than the quarterback, but at the end of the day, it's kind of like the quarterbacks who win the MVPs always have amazing stats. Like when Mahomes had that 50 touchdown season and he got the MVP. It's kind of like the sports, they are the most valuable player in the sport. They would be seen as they should be the most valuable player on every team. Now, obviously, they're not. I'd say Justin Jefferson is obviously more valuable than Kirk Cousins, but there is already awards for the offensive player. Like the quarterbacks don't win the offensive player of the year award. It always goes to a receiver or a running back. And then obviously the defensive players of the year have their award. So the MVP is just always kind of reserved for a quarterback. And I agree with Mark. His touchdown numbers aren't enough to warrant him an MVP. Like I know he has like nearly 1,800 yards, and like that's if he gets 2,000, that would be absolutely amazing. But I'm like, okay, if he has 2,000 yards and maybe 20 touchdowns, let's talk about him being an MVP. But 8 touchdowns is not enough to warrant an MVP. award. It's going to be probably Burrow. If Burrow still plays red hot and gets really far into the playoffs, it'll be him, it'll be Patrick Mahomes, and it'll be Jalen Hurts. I don't like this. I know I'm biased with Jalen, but I don't like this talk of he's been out one game and people are already forgetting about him. I don't want them to play injured because really don't want them to get even more injured and miss more time. But it infuriates me that the guy who's the front runner, because Patrick Mahomes dropped off a little bit, kind of with the interception. So the guy who was the front runner, has now kind of been forgotten about by everybody because he hasn't been able to play one game, and it's kind of like he's not going to be out as long as Carson Wentz. Remember that season, Carson Wentz he should have been the MVP, but then he got injured and was out for the rest of the season. So no, I don't think Justin Jefferson is the MVP. It's always going to kind of go to a quarterback. It's just how it is. But at the end of the day, there is awards for wide receivers and defenders. So it's kind of like
I agree, but
everyone
I
gets an
don't think you
award.
should call the MVP if it's going to be
Yeah,
quarterback.
look,
That's fair. Yeah, maybe the best
see,
quarterback or
There we go.
something like that.
it,
Like
it's the whole thing that the MVP
that'd be fair.
is the quarterback. Yeah, I feel like this is the thing that goes on that I'm not going to say, oh, we're smarter over in Europe or whatever, but like there
I
is
would
kind
say,
of
Mark, 2015, Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning was a shot of himself in 2015, and that Broncos defense carried that team to a championship. I
yeah.
agree with you completely, but there are years where
It's every year. Like if it's Justin Jefferson this year, it's Derrick Henry the last number of years. You know, I would feel more hard done by that Derrick Henry didn't get one when he did have the 2,000 yards, and every single play was the ball in his hands, and like he essentially removed the need for a quarterback in Tennessee because everything was going through him. At least Justin Jefferson does rely on Kirk Cousins making the throw as well. And like I said, he's averaging 10 yards a game more than Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill obviously has Jalen Hurts, but it's like he's getting way more targets as well. Like I know it's when you start getting into the nitty gritty of it, that's why quarterback always wins, because their play is always they have to make the play. Whereas Justin Jefferson depends on if he's getting the ball versus if Tyreek Hill is getting the ball, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah, one thing I would say as well is kind of put these two players in front of people and the fan bases. Would you rather have Justin Jefferson on your team, or would you rather have Patrick Mahomes on your team? And you're 100% going to pick Patrick Mahomes every time, because the quarterback is the most position and it's the hardest position to find a franchise guy at. You can look at other wide receivers that are in the league now, like Jamar Chase, Cooper Kupp, Jefferson. There's loads and loads of really, really great quality guys who are probably going to go on and be Hall of Famers. But then everyone knows it's harder to find a quarterback to lead your team for 10 or 20 years. So if it just that's how you kind of end the argument. Would you rather have Justin Jefferson or Patrick Mahomes in your team? And everyone will go with
Nailed it.
Patrick Mahomes, no matter who their quarterback was.